How you doing? How do you pronounce your name, by the way?
Oh God. So my name is Ahmed Aldoori. You can
Yes,
call me
I did it
Med.
right. I
Oh yeah?
when I said your name, I did it Ahmed.
Yeah,
I
there you
did.
go. Perfect. Well, close enough.
Close enough. Well, okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
I'm
great.
pretty proud of myself. But yeah, I just felt like an idiot unless I ask. So cool. Well, I'm Jason.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I guess for the people on my channel, because I'll be putting this on my channel as well. You're Jason, is it Brubaker?
Brubaker, yeah.
Brubaker. And you've worked at Dreamworks for a long time, as
Yeah.
well as doing comics. Do you want to like talk about that for a second?
Sure,
Like
yeah.
what you've done?
I actually moved to LA when I was 20, and went there because of a portfolio to do comics. I was trying to get into Image and Marvel or DC, and I had a portfolio, and I got a job at the San Diego Comic Con because of my portfolio, but it was for a storyboarding company, an agency. So I moved to LA and started doing storyboards. I was repped by these guys, and they put me in touch with huge directors, and I was just like another production every day. I would work on practically commercials, music videos, movies, all kinds of stuff. And so I worked in that for about 6, 7 years, and then I started doing freelance, which was more concept design and animation. I wanted to get into animation. And then that led me into DreamWorks, and I worked on the intro to Kung Fu Panda,
Oh, cool.
um, which is
Nice.
the best, I think the best job I've ever had.
Right
And
on.
then, so you know that dream sequence, that's the part that I
Yeah.
worked on. And then
Stylized part, yeah.
the stylized, yeah, worked with James Baxter real closely on that. And then they basically went into so James Baxter left DreamWorks to do his own thing. DreamWorks hired him to do the intro to that movie, and then they kind of either they bought him out or something.
Mm.
So he went back to DreamWorks, and then the whole crew of us went with him. And so I went into DreamWorks, and I was like, I don't want to just do animation. I want to do the art that you guys are doing because that's what I really want to do. And so I
Mm.
applied for a viz dev position, and from inside, kind of. And the next Kung Fu Panda movie, I did viz dev on it, and then so I worked on a lot of viz dev after that,
There
basically.
you go.
So, and that was about a 7 year run at DreamWorks. I could have renewed my contract, but because they were just expecting me to stay, and I was in the middle of Kung Fu Panda 3, but I was like, you guys, I gotta get out of here. You know, it's like I felt like it was the golden
Oh,
handcuffs, and
absolutely.
I was like, if I don't leave, I'm gonna be a lifer, and I have these projects I gotta do. I mean, my comics are they're
Yeah.
kind of doing pretty good. You know, I wouldn't be able to make a living in LA from them, but if I moved out of LA, I could probably do this. And so that's what I did. And that was about almost 3 years ago now. I moved
Yeah.
back home to Idaho, this really small town in Idaho, and have a cheap office here, but it's my own office,
It's
and
awesome.
you know it's in this old part of town, and I just make my graphic novels all day long now. And
That
so
is a dream.
yeah, it's surreal. It's still surreal. There's other levels of stress that come with it that I never expected, but it's I wouldn't trade it. You
Right,
know,
right, right. It's worth it. It's worth
it's
the
worth it. I would rather stress on my own project than on someone else's project. You know.
So this is something I've been recently going through myself as well. It's like when I tell people like, yeah, I don't want to work for studios, and I'm sure it's like, you're in the studio and it's like you said, the golden handcuffs. It's the ideal thing. You're working on this big project. You're like, oh my God, it's DreamWorks. And in my case, it was like, working on video games. And so,
Mm.
um, but there's that yearning to do your own thing. And it's like, at first it's going to be rough because you're probably going to make less money at first. And then in my case, like I took a huge pay cut, but like, you know, I think having the freedom to just pursue your thing is so much more rewarding because you have to let yourself be creative. And if you're doing it for somebody else's project and it's not your own, you'll just
Yeah,
resent it,
yeah.
So actually recently I made the decision to also leave LA. So I'm going to probably be here for another month or two and then go. It's a similar thing. I'm going to go back to Ohio, and then
Mm.
it's super cheap there, and then sort of try to travel around and find a new place to live.
That's great.
Yeah,
I'm happy for you, man. That's
yeah,
exciting. I
isn't
I
it?
I really, I've always wanted to make a video like called like people of LA, you've been duped,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that, because
yeah.
everyone thinks they have to go there.
Right.
And there's these just strange, like, once you're there, everyone kind of is tricked into thinking a certain way, and it's
Stay there.
really hard to
Yeah.
break out of it.
Mm.
And it just doesn't need to be that way. That's the weird place. Everywhere else is normal.
Yeah, yeah.
At least that's what it seems like.
And when you're in the bubble, it's almost like surreal. Like, and you don't. I didn't even think to move out, and for some reason, because I don't need to stay. I don't have a studio job or anything. But I started looking for a new apartment in the area. I'm looking at the
Yeah.
prices. I'm
Yeah.
thinking like all my friends are somewhere else. Like, why am I here? Like,
Yeah.
and I sort of woke up from the dream. But I mean, it was a great experience nonetheless. Obviously,
Hmm.
like meeting people and
Yeah.
making connections that you're going to have forever, that kind of
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
And I was there.
yeah,
I was in LA almost 20 years, and the first 10 years, I called it my home. I loved it. But
yeah,
once I got married and had kids, that's when it really started shifting for me. And I just felt like I need to get out of here.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, there was so much I learned from being there and in all those
right.
studios. It's untradeable.
Mm. So, talking about comics, Remind. Was that your
Hmm.
first comic?
That was my first like attempt at doing it professionally.
Because it
Uh,
looks great.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
oh man.
Yeah, it went through a lot of phases because it was going to be an animation. When I was into
Okay.
animation, that's what I was trying to
Yeah,
make as an animation, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to do a comic version, and I was going to start on Cithra, the one I'm working on
yeah.
now, but I was like, you know what? I have this animation. I should experiment with this one instead of a brand new story, and so I kind of rewrote it, and I'm glad
Mm.
I experimented with Remind because it's still kind of the most popular one probably amongst the
Sure.
fans.
And the thing is, like, I for a while thought I wanted to do comics as well, and I still might, but it's really daunting, writing the
Yeah,
story, doing the layouts, having it all flow together, and putting it all together. It's just like, and it's like as you do it, like part of your brain's like, oh, we could have done it another way, and then you have to settle, and you have to make a choice, and then
yeah, it is. It's kind of like I heard someone talk about it. I don't know if it was Kazoo or who, but where comics is like it's a movie, but one person is doing the whole thing. They're doing
Yeah,
all the roles.
yeah.
And yeah, I've been really feeling that, especially with the deadlines that I have with this company called Webtoons, which is the site that I put it on every week, and they want a certain amount of content every week, and
Wow.
wow, I just have never worked so hard in all my life. I mean, I've worked pretty hard at some freelance jobs, but
Sure, sure.
this is intense. And I think the thing is that it has my name attached to it, so
It's
um,
part of you. It
it's
reflects you.
yeah, and so I don't really want it to just kind of be like, oh, that's good enough. But
Could you
I'm
explain what Webtoons is?
so Webtoons is a South Korean website where they basically are trying to get a lot of comic artists to post their comics on there, and they have a group of featured artists that they actually pay a monthly salary to to provide exclusive content weekly, and
So you have
so
to write and illustrate and deliver every week.
every week, yeah.
Wow.
And the thing about my stuff is I started it before it went to Webtoons, and because Webtoons in America is pretty new.
Mm.
In South Korea, it's like 13 years old or something like that. It's huge over there, but here they're still trying to like grow it. And so when they invited me on the platform, it was, I don't know, like 6 months old, I guess, maybe less. And so I had already had my first Cithra book done. So I'd already established the style and the technique of how to do it. Like it's all pen,
Mm.
brush, and ink. And so for me to say, okay, I'm going to change the whole style so I can fit the speed of this thing was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure that this is done the way I want it to because it's
Yeah.
all about the books. And so I've committed to this thing being like a very, time intensive process, but it's still
Yeah.
trying to do it at these speeds. And if you look at Webtoons, a lot of the stuff on there is like you can tell it's quickly done,
Yeah.
and it's because it needs to be. And so I found myself in this weird boat where it's like, it's this love-hate type thing, because
Yeah.
I love that they're providing me the money to make this thing, but
Right.
I just wish it was a little bit more reasonable of a speed for what I'm trying to do. But at the end of the day, I got basically 6 books done now,
Oh my God.
5 of them under Webtoons, and that's in about a 2.5 year
6
time,
books.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, and we're not talking of like a floppy comic. We're talking like a 200-page graphic novel in some cases, Well, not 200, but 180 or 160,
So, questions about that. So, I assume you write everything out first and you have it planned, or do you kind of discover as you go? Do you change a lot as you go?
I do. I guess for the most part, I write like as a bullet point list, right? And then I go into the storyboarding process, or the thumbnailing process, I guess, with comics, and that's kind of where a lot of the nuance starts happening, and even dialogue is written, and I'll add scenes and take away scenes based on the thumbnails, and sometimes I'll even figure out who the bad guy is or whatever, in those moments.
Cool. All right.
And so there's a lot of like, it's a lot of just kind of letting the characters grow and become who they're going to
Yeah.
be.
Right
It's I've heard writing described as either like the architect or the gardener, and I would say I'm more the gardener, where it's like I plant things and then I see how it grows,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I just try to keep working with what's growing.
That's a great analogy. Huh. Very interesting. And obviously you have a YouTube channel as well, and you kind of talk a lot about not just comics, but like what you kind of go through as an artist. And your most recent video, you're talking about, well, you're doing these comics, you want to keep going, and you have these 3 options. And you mentioned image as one of the options. And when you said that, that to me also sounds like a great idea, and it's appealing because I love their comics, and they're really, if you can prove that you can do great work, it could really work out. So is that what you're leaning more towards?
Yeah, I'm especially now, and I was always kind of not against it, but I approached comics as I want to self-publish these,
Yeah.
And Image is a self-publisher in essence, it's a
Right.
bunch of self-publishers basically.
So how'd that work?
Well, the thing is, I never wanted to do it before because I didn't like the idea of putting someone else's name on my stuff. But
Right.
now that I've published for years, and it's been going good, but I'm just like, and Scotty Young was actually the one who convinced me of this. He's just like, there's these, if you go with Image, if you get in there, you're going to be connected with these industry leaders that will connect you with so many other people. And, you're leaving half your money on the table because everybody who buys the floppies also buys the trade paperbacks. And so he's the one who kind of presented me with that third idea of Image. I wasn't even really thinking that way, which is bizarre because I love Image and I love all the people who started it. I mean, that's what got me into comics was Image. So for whatever reason, it took years of me doing it a different way before I finally was like, wait a minute, I really want to try this now.
Yeah. Was Scotty, is that Fairy Tale Land?
I Hate Fairyland.
Yeah.
Is his
Fairyland.
Image
Fairyland.
book. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, he's been a big advocate of Image, and I've always kind of battled him on it. Like, yeah, right. I mean, that's cool, but not for me, And this time around, he's just like, dude, you've done everything else. Just this is like the only thing you haven't done. So why don't you try it? And I'm like, yeah, that's probably.
So what you would do is put together, was it 3 issues or something, and you submit it?
Yeah, apparently. Now, this is all secondhand information, but apparently before they'll publish anything, they need 3 issues done of a series. So.
And they don't edit anything you do. It's like, it's yours.
You own it. So you own everything about it. And so, but I think, if you want help from them, they will provide editors or colors or whatever. It will just take cut, or you'll have to pay for it. But it's kind of like a flat fee they charge, I think. Now, I haven't done it before, so I'm not sure. And it's
Mm.
just like it's just what I remember people saying. But it's like a flat fee you pay so many couple thousand, I think, or something, and it kind of pays for the printing and production. And then once their costs are done, then the profit is all you, or something like that.
Mm.
And it's a real artist friendly company in that
Yeah.
sense, because if
Yeah.
you make if you sell 100,000 copies, which would be ridiculous, then you would be getting a huge amount of money compared to, if a DC or something would publish it. They
Right.
would just pay you your flat rate,
Which
and
is, yeah.
so, and then they also help negotiating international deals and rights, and
And they know what they're doing.
if any of that stuff happens, yeah, and it seems like it's still with the artist in mind, because
They are
it
artists.
was artists founded, and the artists
Yeah.
are still running it, so
Yeah.
they're like, well, no, this isn't how we do it,
Right. They get it.
So I really respect that, and for whatever it just seems bizarre to me that I was so like against it before.
Mhm.
I mean, I can kind of say why I was against it, but I feel like I just had to grow up a little bit.
Yeah. For me, I guess it might, in that scenario, it might be like pride or ego that keeps me from, like, putting someone else's name on something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think for me as an artist, I really have to I go at things real hard-headedly when it's my art,
Yeah.
and I have to prove something, or prove that it shouldn't be something,
Mm.
So for me, it's like I had these things I wanted to prove that the comics industry needed, like hardcover books and things done in spreads and different kind of coloring and all these weird things, mixing prose maybe, but and yeah, some of those I'm glad I proved, but then there was other things that I'm like, okay, I was proven wrong in that case,
Okay.
and so there's still a lot of those things I want to take to this, like if I were to pitch to Image, and I do want to, and so, but it's just. I don't know if I'm a good pitcher, I've pitched at studios and stuff, but I've never, sold the rights to anything.
Very
So
interesting.
I can't say if my pitching skills are going to be amazing. But then again, you see a lot of kind of random stuff coming out through Image too. So
I don't know. Well, if you ever want to pitch it to me, I could give you feedback.
yeah, maybe I should.
So here's a question. Now you're doing this full time. What is your routine like as an artist? Because people are always wondering, okay, what is the life of an artist? I mean, you have your own studio, and also how does that compare to working at a bigger studio?
I keep weekends to myself, and I do that mainly because I have a family, and it's like if I don't, then I'll just never see them, because when I was single, I could have worked every day almost on something, and so I really try to just have weekdays are my work days, and I come in around 9, and or actually a little earlier now because I drop off my son at his school, so I just come directly after that, and then I usually leave here about 6. So it ends up being kind of a longer day than I normally would put in at a studio, and but it goes by real fast because
it's yours.
it's not like, oh, how much time do I got left to get out of here? No, it's like, dude, I got to get all this stuff done. How do I do it?
Yeah.
And I can't believe it's Friday already. That kind of stuff. So
Do
I
you get your
just put in the
coffee?
time. Yeah. There's days that I'm just missing everything. I mean, I'm just off, and I'm not able to draw anything right or color anything right.
Yep.
But then there's days that I'm just like, I get
You're on a
12
roll.
pages drawn, and I'm like, how do I do that? And so it's just, but putting in that time allows you to have those bad days, If I just waited to be inspired, then it would happen very rarely.
Absolutely. There's a book on that actually. Have you read it? It's The War of Art. They talk
No.
about
I've heard
They
of
talk
it,
about
though.
like inspiration and creativity. It's like if you sit around and wait for inspiration, it might come every once in a while. But as an artist, as a professional, you have
Yeah.
to get up and do it anyway. And then
Yeah.
eventually, like, you just kind of get in the habit of just making good art, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm still trying
Yeah.
to master
That's
that one.
true. Yeah. As I have a lot of people asking me that, and that's a lot of the answers. Like there are ways to kind of get inspiration. Like one of them is take a break. Actually, like just
Yeah,
go outside and walk around, and or even
music.
take a day off.
Hmm.
For some reason, sometimes we just need to rest from what we're loving to do in our work. And
Right,
so that can get that inspiration. But if that doesn't work, that professional aspect of it is you got to just push through it.
right.
When you're on the job and you're getting paid by the hour to draw a picture, that's awesome.
Yeah,
You just keep making those revisions and you keep trying a new angle until it finally works. And so
right.
eventually you get in the habit of just continuing to try a new thing.
So absolutely, and there's definitely going to be a lot of students listening to this. If you had anything to say for students who are learning early on, who are dealing with that, and they're distracted by, let's say, Facebook or
Yeah.
online stuff, video games. I mean, I have that problem too. But what
Yeah.
would you say for battling that for a better work ethic?
Oh man. I mean, I would go all out and just say pull the plug on it. I mean,
Nice.
at the end of the day, what's your goal in life? Is it to become really popular on Facebook with your friends, or is it to get this personal project done, or this thing
Right
done, or
on.
to go get your career launched? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And at some point, you got to realize that these things are they're just eating away at all your time. And if you have 15 little things that eat away at your time, that's a whole day's worth
Yeah.
of just wasted time. And you know, also, the way these things are built, it's built to just like they're built like little drugs. They're
Yeah.
just giving you these little rushes, and it's like you don't want that to control you.
Right. Right.
So if you're in that situation where it's just eating away at your time, I mean, try like it's just straight up like
Disconnecting.
fasting from it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like just don't do it. Pull something out. It might just be
Right.
Facebook. It might be just Twitter. You
Right.
know, or it might just be for certain hours of the day. But
Mm.
as an independent artist and creator, you have to start learning to kind of control that.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's tricky, but
I mean, I
there's
found that when I first moved into this apartment, I didn't have internet, and I was kind of nice. I'm like, I'm gonna just go as long as I can. And for
yeah
2 or 3 weeks, I was so productive, and I was like,
yeah
it was, and I enjoyed it. But then I got
hmm
internet again, so because I had to do work.
yeah
But then I got sucked right back in, and so
yeah
it's just a
yeah.
dance between on and off.
There's when I was working at DreamWorks, and I was trying to get my second graphic novel done, and I had two kids and a wife who was going through postpartum depression, so it was like it was just intense, and I
Yeah.
was like, "There's no way I can do this," but there was this window of time early in the morning. It was I'd wake up at like 4:30, I think, and I would work from 5 to 7. So there's 2 hours, and it was uninterrupted. I wouldn't check my email. I wouldn't go online at all. I would just plug in and start working,
That's
and it
awesome.
was completely quiet, uninterrupted. And then 7 o'clock, the kids are waking up, the wife's waking up and getting things ready, and then we go to work. You know, it was amazing. Like
Hmm.
just giving yourself that uninterrupted time period is amazing. So it's not like you have to cut it out completely. Like I tend to kind of go crazy with my when I'm like feel some passionate about something. I'm like, I'm gonna do this all the way. And
Yeah. Yeah. That's
let's
awesome.
cut out Facebook completely. I won't touch it.
Yeah.
But some people, there's something there that they need, or
Hmm.
something. Maybe that's the way they communicate with their family. I don't know. So you don't want to just cut that out. But
Sure.
but giving yourself this uninterrupted window of time is amazing,
Yeah.
and I would say, like, if anyone can get up early and try it, because you end up going to school or work like just in a really good
Refreshed.
mood because
Yeah.
you've had 2 hours of your own work done, and
Right.
you're feeling good about yourself. And now it doesn't matter what people throw at you because you've already done your thing,
Mm.
Instead of
That
like
is
waiting until
excellent
the whole
advice.
day's done and then doing it at night and you're burnt out.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
just
so
not,
glad to
yeah.
hear that. That's actually pretty inspirational, I think. Yeah.
And what's funny, I've seen a lot of artists do that and talk about it online, and some of them are
Mm.
like they say 3 a.m. is when I get up or 4, and some of them are just like saying, man, this has revolutionized my art and you can do it with any situation,
Yeah.
as long as you go to bed early enough, like I'd
Mm.
have to get to bed by 10 in order to be able to do that, because I need my sleep.
Right, right.
But there's some people that don't need as much sleep as I do.
Would you
But
say that maybe, I guess, the responsibility and work ethic amplified when you got married and had kids?
totally, yeah.
All right.
It,
So that's what I got to do then.
with kids especially, for whatever reason, there's something that clicks in your brain, and you're just kind of like,
No more messing
I,
around.
I'm either going to spend the rest of my life living vicariously through my children, which is great if you have, I mean, that there's part of that I want to do, but as they grow up, but I don't want it to just be my time is done and and
Right,
now it's
right.
all about someone else's time. So there's a little bit of selfishness in that, but also it's just like you have kids and you're like, I want to do something that's gonna give them something
Yeah.
in the future too, like whether it's like stories that I've written that I want to tell my kids, or even
A great role model,
whatever it is. Yeah,
yeah.
like kids, you can do this too. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like check out what I'm doing all day long. Like, and I made this awesome thing. And my kids are like they're already starting to see it.
yeah.
They're like my oldest son. He's not. He just turned 9, and he made this card game, and it's about cars, and it's kind of like an adding and subtracting game, and we want to put it on Kickstarter and try
Oh my
to like
God.
raise like a couple $100 and just
Show them that it's
but he's
possible.
excited about it because he's seen me do it, and so he's thinking in this way now. I can make products and put it on Kickstarter and sell it to my friends.
That's awesome. Dad of the
So
year right there.
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I can help him get it on there.
Mm.
That's it.
Those are most of the questions I've had.
Those are the ones. Well,
Yeah,
good. Well,
yeah.
I wouldn't mind asking you some questions.
Bring
I
it
don't have
on.
anything written down.
Yeah.
So, so what are your goals with art? What are you trying to do with your art career?
That's a great question. I think it's similar in line with what you're doing in that, sure, there's a lot of options in terms of working for studios or freelancing, and there's like big companies that I wouldn't mind doing work for. Like I love Overwatch, right? So I like Blizzard, but would I actually
Yeah.
work for them? And I asked myself, I want to do my own thing, so maybe not, right? So I think the goal for art is like whatever I'm doing, I want it to be an authentic self-expression, whatever that is. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm in the process of discovering what that is because I've been so, I guess, distracted and locked in the mindset of doing art for an audience, whether the audience was an art director or an actual group of people, or whether it's Instagram. And so I think I'm onto some really cool things. And uh, right now, I'm wrapping up some freelance stuff. I'm pretty much done. But through Patreon, what I'm doing is setting up not just like, oh, here's my process video, here's a JPEG, but rather, hey, if you're part of this, I'm giving out assignments every 2 weeks, assignments
Mm-hmm.
that I would give to my art center students, because I taught at the college as well as Brainstorm. So um, it's exciting for me because it's like I get to do the assignment and then they get to see how I do it and they do it and they learn. And so that's
Yeah.
pretty fulfilling, right? So maybe that's what I want to do is just have these little challenges. Like, do I want to paint flowers all day? I don't know, right? Whatever it might be. So I'm in the process of honing in on the answer to your question.
Yeah.
So I think to discover it will be something I figure out when I leave LA, because right now it's
Yeah.
such a like haze, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why I want to get out. And luckily, I'm fortunate enough to have this platform and do this. So.
Yeah, yeah. Now, was the YouTube platform, was that kind of an accident, or was that a real intentional decision to to start there?
Yeah, I mean, well, the weird thing is I started it in 2006, and I made a video, and it has a lot of views, but I didn't make a video since then. And so, like over like the span of like I guess 8 years, there was nothing on there, but it was getting followers anyway. And so I just released a video, and then it just slowly started to build up. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, the intention was to build a platform to connect with people who are like you and I, like the younger version of us who were yearning to learn.
Hmm.
You and I didn't have YouTube. We didn't have like somebody
Exactly.
saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going through." Oh, you're having a hard time drawing. Well, here's why. Uh,
Yeah,
and it's super helpful for them. And they, you could see in the comments like, "Wow, I just figured out why I'm having a hard time." And it's usually a psychological thing, like, "Oh yeah, it's because this bully judged me or this parent said
yeah,
this." And so if I can provide that for somebody else, it's in a way paying it forward, but also what I get in return is like the platform, right?
yeah.
And so I think starting it out was I listened to this audiobook by Grant Cardone, who's not an artist. He's a real estate business guy,
Hmm.
and it's called the 10x rule. So the premise of the book is if you have a goal, and whatever it is it might be, in order to succeed in doing that, it's actually going to take 10 times the amount of effort than you think it would be. And he's reading this audiobook, and he's like this kind of drill sergeant sounding guy. So I'm like, I gotta get into shape. I gotta do this work. I gotta make a YouTube channel. I gotta do. And so from there, I just had this, I guess, motivation, at least in the beginning, to just get a platform going. And so then I made a couple videos and tons of free tutorials that are really helpful. And and at this point, it's like I still want to do them because I don't. I think there's certain art lessons that should be free.
Yeah,
Like there's certain things that I think everyone should have access to because
yeah,
I'm not going to take something super important that can change your life and then put a price tag on it, right? The thing that I will
yeah,
put a price tag on is the extra stuff, like the things that I could offer, um, you know, uh, in extra. But yeah, so the idea was I want to connect with people, but also put myself out there as an authentic person.
hmm,
Because there's a lot of stuff out there that's like, "Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna do," like, I can't
yeah,
stand that stuff. I'd rather be like, "Hey, what's up? Yeah, today kind of sucked because I blah 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 blah, and
yeah,
I wrote this thing down, and I'll show my mistakes." And so I think showing your vulnerability is the best way to prove that you're a human and not a robot. And so that was my goal.
yeah,
It's like, how do I be authentic? And so personality wise, I think I did that. I think the next step would be the art. It's like, what am I genuinely wanting to express, and why haven't I been doing it? I mean, part of it is like, well, assumptions that people have, and expectations, like, oh, you
yeah,
shouldn't draw this, you should draw that, blah 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 blah,
yeah,
or you should replicate the masters. It's like all these thoughts are like swirling, and part of it is just fear of you know like a panel of judges, right? But as I'm getting rid of those judges in my head, I'm starting to free up and doing things that are enjoyable. Because for a long time, I haven't enjoyed doing art, and it's
yeah.
like it's the
Oh
one of the
man,
worst curses, right?
I'm totally right there with you on that. It's
Yeah.
just, taken me almost 20 years to finally like really well, no, like 15 years to finally just start saying, okay, I'm going to put this comic out there and put it online and actually
Yeah.
have a blog and an opinion online was
Mm.
so difficult because I just felt like everything I said would be judged, you
Yeah.
know? And it's weird because as an artist, your stuff is judged anyway. Like even at a
Right.
studio, you're being judged. So why is it so hard for us to get over this um, idea that
Sure.
anything else can't be judged, what
Yeah.
I'm wearing is going to be judged,
Sure.
like my big headphones. No. Anyway, but yeah, I feel you. I just think it's interesting because I've um I've always approached the stuff the art I do, the personal projects, um, like first, and then I think about the platform and
Oh my God.
the audience second. And so I find myself in these boats, like where I'm at, where I have all this work done, but I'm trying to figure out how to connect it to an audience now. And I feel like you're kind of like,
The
you're trying to
opposite.
figure out what you're doing with your work, but you have already connected to an audience, right?
Yeah, so let's trade.
I mean, I think that's why we're having this conversation, is
It's such a
to
great
try to
conversation. So
merge these worlds.
I've actually written out the equation in my sketchbook because I write a lot in my sketchbook.
Yeah.
It's like it's a formula. Uh, Me doing art means consider audience first, which is such a bad thing because what happens then is like, okay, now there's a checklist of expectations, a checklist of things not to do. Definitely don't draw that. Don't be politically incorrect. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Make sure you're inclusive. And it's like, especially with the political stuff
Yeah.
going on now, there's no matter what you do, somebody's going to be like, oh, well, this is going to offend blah, 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 or you're not.
Yeah.
And so my checklist is so annoying. And so I guess the solution would be to reverse the equation and say, just do art for me, whatever that is, enjoy it, and don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah.
And just, and then figure out how to put it out there. So interesting.
I was pitching a TV show pitch to well, okay, back up. There's this guy named Jim Ballantyne who he was one of the producers on Ren and Stimpy, and for some reason he kind of wanted to mentor me with my pitching, and so
Okay.
it was a great time because he would go with me to pitches, at least a couple of them, and then he would want me to pitch stuff to him, and he would help me refine it. And one of the things he's told me, because I was trying to pitch Remind as a animation, and one of the things he told me is like, when you do this pitch, you got to be unapologetic with what you're trying to say. Like you're being too like, oh, I hope I don't hurt anyone's feelings with this.
Right.
Is this what you want to see? You know, and I'm thinking of it as
Yes.
like a freelancer. Like, does the director want to see this? I don't know. You know, but it's like, no. Like, forget the director. You know, forget what the audience wants. Like, this is awesome, and I'm telling you it's awesome, and you're gonna love it. You know, and it's like
That's your voice. Yeah.
that's your voice, and it's with your art, it's with your story, it's with your opinions, it's with your whatever it is, the moral of your story, you know, your worldview, you know, whatever that is. Like, don't walk into this apologizing. At least this is what I got out of it from this guy, and it really changed the way I approach things, and that's when I started putting like blogging, you know, and that's when I started talking about whatever. And for me, it was like the real challenging thing was like talking about what I believe, like my faith, and it's something that's I've always enjoyed talking to people one-on-one about it, but and thinking this way, you know, my stories are all kind of wrapped up in this world of like what we believe and stuff, but it was always scary for me to express any of that online because I just felt like, oh, no one wants to hear what you believe, you know, even though every story has an opinion and it's a worldview and a set of beliefs in it, you know.
It's like you could play it safe by seeing what's already out there, emulating that, but don't put your voice into it. And that's one of the worst things an artist could do.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you know, if you really want to approach this as the way I suggest to people, like, what is the message you want to tell your kids on your deathbed? Like, it's like you're going to tap into that territory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you're just
God
going
willing.
to. It's like you're not going to tell your kids they need to comb their hair nice and do what everyone else is doing. You know. I mean, maybe you will if you really are. If you're a hairstylist. But anyway. Interesting. Back to this whole world of, it's almost like, I always compare, and sorry, Jake Parker, I'm going to mention Jake Parker. I always bug him because he's such an awesome example of this amazing artist that is doing, it seems like everything right. And, but I always have conflicted opinions with how he's doing it because it's not my approach, you know?
Okay.
But I always see everything he does and I go, Jake Parker, you're doing this awesome stuff, you know, but like I can't get myself to do like fan art and I can't get myself to do like pinups and you know what I'm saying?
Same boat.
But I know
Yeah.
that would really help me connect to an audience,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's this like push and pull. And the thing with like YouTube,
Yeah.
there's a lot of amazing people on YouTube, and there's a lot of like ways I could kind of, I guess you would say, game YouTube to get the
Yeah.
audience, but it's just so not my heart's just not into it, and I start
And
listing out the videos that I should do, and then I'm just kind of like, I don't care anymore.
right. And the thing is, thinking about doing that in a way, it makes you feel weak because it's like, if I do this, sure, it'll work, but it's definitely not my authentic voice,
Yeah,
right?
and you'll
And so,
get trapped into this world of doing that stuff that you don't
yeah,
really
yeah,
enjoy doing. So anyway, I just barely switched gears with my YouTube to where I and it kind of happened by accident where I know I'm going into this turmoil as I wrap up my book that I'm working on, and I'm going to be pitching a new book next year, and I don't know where the funding is coming from, but
right.
I just thought this would be a fun time to actually try to do behind the scenes as I'm going through the ups and downs of this because it's
Mm,
really stressing me out,
yeah.
and it's almost like my journal, and I started recording these like just kind of videos that are kind of like a journal, and people have really liked them, and I'm
Nice.
like, I actually like doing these too, and it's like I'm not necessarily trying to copy anyone, you know, like you look at like the Casey Neistats where it's like beautiful
Yeah.
editing, everything's like this guy's a cinematographer. He was born thinking about shots, you know,
Mm,
and then you know, then there's the straight like how-to stuff or whatever it is, you know, or just the family vlogs and whatever. And it's like I see all that, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do any of that, you know.
mm.
But for whatever reason, I found this little interesting area where it's like me talking about like trying to develop and pitch this next thing, and it's been
It's
fun.
so, yeah,
So I don't know how it's gonna go, but I'm just kind of rolling with it, you know, because it's like it's a
that's
real
great.
spontaneous thing, and hopefully I can keep doing it.
Right. I don't know if, do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is? Uh,
um, yes,
the
he's
entrepreneur?
the yes, he's
Yeah.
written that book, Ask Gary V, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Really great guy. His content is really helpful for the things that we're doing as well. One of the things he talks about for people in our scenario where you're doing stuff and building an audience and stuff, he says, don't create, just document. So whatever it is that you're
Oh,
doing, that is the creation. You know,
interesting.
as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to curate some sort of, I guess, compilation or amalgamation of something that you think is supposed to be it, but rather like, oh yeah, which is what you're doing. It's like this is what I'm going through.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's right on. It's totally valid.
That's cool. I need to write that down. I'm gonna
Yeah.
stick that on my camera.
Document, don't create.
There we go. Got it written down. This is the boring part right now as I write something down live.
Oh
Okay,
no, that's fine.
done. It's not boring anymore.
Right on. Do you have any other? So yeah, I guess yeah. Going back to the original question, the next thing for my art, I don't know. It's like it's either I have a couple ideas, actually plenty of ideas. Like there's world building, there's illustration, there's uh, concept design, which is under world building. I actually had this pretty fun idea where I would write out a bunch of prompts for illustrations that are in a world, and instead of like doing a bunch of concept art things, I would do illustrations, almost like Magic the Gathering.
Hmm.
Um, and then every 2 weeks I would release one, like as a card, right? And maybe
Yeah.
spin a little story around it. So there's so many different avenues that could happen, but I think I'll really start nailing it when I'm the hell out of this place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Get out and do something else, and
yeah,
that's when the ideas start happening.
yeah.
At
Because
least that's what I find.
yeah, when you're in an echo chamber or a bubble, it's like it's the same ideas, it's the same
Yeah.
walls, it's the same Pinterest board. It's like, so I
Yeah.
think part of what I want to do is also just when I get back to Ohio, I'll drive from LA to there, um, maybe spend a month with the family, but then travel around the world, just like
Oh
meet
man,
people,
that's
just see
cool.
things, and let that inform my art. Um,
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that more.
Mm.
It's just that would be so amazing. My
Mm.
dream is to like rent a house in like some other country for
Yeah.
3 months and just live there and work on something, and then go rent a house in another place. And then when I feel like coming back home, come home for a little bit.
Do
But
it.
because we live online now, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter where you're at.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that keeps me in a place now is the kids.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking once they're
Yeah.
moving out, that's kind of going to be a goal of mine anyway.
Right on.
Because I would love it. I mean, you just going and seeing some other culture is so much inspiration.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
I mean, I was in Japan for 2 weeks, and that alone was just enough fuel for a good time, a long time
Yeah,
after of just
yeah,
art and yeah.
that's cool. So are you is your art kind of is would you say storytelling is part of your art, or is it more the artist that just needs to make, like, enjoys the process of making? You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
I'm torn between a lot of different things, and it's like I'd say it's a mix because as somebody who contemplates a lot and I'm thinking and to sometimes existential degrees, but uh, like I figure it's like, oh, if I make art, I want to tell a story. I want a very specific feeling and emotion and carrying somebody through as a journey, the
Hmm.
hero's journey. And as storytellers, we do that. It's like there's a fundamental human truth in every story, and I want to find a way to bring that out so it because if you can do it for your art, when someone looks at it, they feel that, and then you connect with that person, so on and so forth, which is what I think the best stories do. But at the same time, sometimes I just want to paint a pretty portrait, right?
Yeah.
And so, which is in a way meaningless, kind of literally because I'm not putting a specific idea or axiom into it, but it's rather like, okay, here's the plane of the nose, here's a shadow.
Yeah.
That's enjoyable too. So I don't know. I think I'm sort of figuring that out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But going back to the fan art thing, it's like sometimes I'm like, I have a cool idea. I want to make a cool pose with the Overwatch character. Um,
Yeah.
but then I start to do it and I don't feel it. It's like, I can't do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I go through that. I've thought I keep thinking, like, I want to do fan art where I mix my cat character into the fan art,
Yeah.
so that it not only is fan art, but it also kind of
It's
advertises
yours.
my product line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's this total scummy. No, no, I don't
No,
know. It's
no.
it's, but that's the way I would be able to get into
Right.
it. Is if
Right.
I somehow incorporate my stuff into it.
That's the thing. I think the fan art that I would do and the fan art that I see that is successful and I like
Hmm.
is when they put their own twist to it, whether it's their own
Oh yeah,
style, whether it's they've added a different costume to the character, but it's still recognizable,
yeah,
or mixing different things. So I think just copying an existing character is one thing, and then putting a twist to it would be pretty fun. But at the same
yeah,
time,
yeah.
even when I start trying to do that, there's another part of my brain that's like nagging me, like, well, why don't you do this thing? It's like going to be more fun because it's your own, and so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the other thing that I have well, so okay, so for me as an artist, I've realized, and this was like when maybe my mid 30s, no, early 30s is when I finally realized this. Um, I enjoy art because of the storytelling aspect of it, of
Okay.
their for whatever reason, it took me a long all those years of career of hating working on art
Yeah. I'm
to
there.
really just go, why am I doing art in the first place? I'd almost be more happy going to a construction job. I could at
Yeah.
least get some muscles and I would get a tan if I'm outside. But why am I doing this? And I went home, where I'm at now in Idaho, and I was digging through my parents' or my bedroom, and my parents had a box of my old art in it. And
Yeah.
everything that I made was a little story. It was like,
That's awesome.
even if it was stick figures, it was a story. And it kind of clicked. I finally realized at that moment, like, I'm not, I didn't want to become an artist so I could draw someone else's picture or
There you
story.
go.
I was first drawn to creating stories somehow. And it's just like art is the most amazing way to do it. So
Absolutely.
that's why I fell in love with art, I think. You know, all the artists I admired were storytellers. You know, it wasn't a painter, you know.
Right.
And not saying that's how it is for anyone else, but it took me going back to my childhood and digging through what I did as a kid that wasn't attached to money or anything, just for fun
That's
to
such a
really
great
discover
story.
that,
That is
you
awesome.
know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, what
No, me
maybe
too.
you'll discover that digging through your old childhood
My
art.
old art was like doing little stupid comics. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like I remember doing, and the thing is, the comics I made were, uh, I would have a specific friend in mind. I'm like, how could I make this person laugh? And so I'll make the silliest, like, SpongeBob versus Yoda lightsaber battle, and like it was like a 10-page thing, and I did dramatic lighting, and I
Yeah.
gotta find that. I wonder if it's somewhere. But yeah, it was things like that that kind of made people laugh. I think, I think maybe you're onto something, because like we tend to get lost, at least I did for a very long time, thinking it's about the brushstroke, right?
Hmm.
And it's like it's about the how well can you make it look believable or rendered, and is it impressive? If not, then it's like it's not valid. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think having some kind of story element, whether it's your own or something. Huh.
Yeah. It seems to me like you're really in art. I mean, I haven't studied everything you've done, so this
Mm.
is just a shallow perception.
Mm.
But it seems to me like you're in the art to kind of to give to people kind of on a
Mm.
personal level
Mm.
because you're doing a lot of the educational stuff. You're given your patron right now is about giving people assignments. You know, I
Mm.
mean, um, and but then there's that storytelling aspect is, and it's like you don't want to stick to one thing, which is amazing. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to be the lifetime peanuts,
Yeah,
Charles
yeah.
Schultz type person. But maybe it's just finding a way to give to individuals in a short burst of storytelling. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Um,
All right.
I don't know. I'm just
Totally. No.
thinking as I hear what you're talking about. Sorry, I
No, I
don't.
totally get it.
Please take anything and throw away anything you want.
No,
Uh,
this is super helpful. You're definitely my senior. You have more experience than I do. This is very helpful. Um, yeah, I mean, somehow that's definitely on the list of things I have to figure out. It's going to be a series of questions. It sucks
yeah,
because I hate being like I, I kind of wish I was dumb, like in a weird way. It's like if I didn't think so much, I could just do whatever my hand wants to do. But I have
yeah,
to overthink everything and analyze and really. But I think I'm hoping that there's a payoff that's like when you the same way where like you kind of started recording those vlogs or whatever and just felt right and it's like I'm gonna roll with it. I think
yeah,
that's what I felt when I figure out the assignments thing. I'm like, because the same week that I was figuring out my Patreon, in the video, it was like, hey, so if you want to pledge, you get the process videos, which is what everyone's doing, right?
yeah,
And then when I was planning to launch, I think it was Saturday or something, and I met with a student who wanted me to critique her work, and so I met with her at a nearby shop, and I'm like critiquing her work. I'm telling her her portfolio needs this and that, and this and that. And at the end of it, she's like, "Okay, could you, would you mind giving me an assignment?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And she's like, "You will? Oh my God, thank you!" And she lit up, and I'm like, then it
huh,
clicked. Then it clicked. I'm like, people want some kind of guidance, some kind of format and
thing.
structure that
Yeah,
since we've been through it, so. Um, and having taught at Art Center and Brainstorm and CGMA, like I kind of have a pretty decent idea of like what helps people. And
yeah,
so I'm like, why don't I make that what my Patreon's about? So,
yeah.
but
Oh,
but
that's interesting. Yeah,
but to do that and also incorporate art that I want to do and storytelling, that's the next challenge. And I think you've
yeah,
helped just by telling me your story
yeah.
there.
I don't mean to just plug my own stuff.
No, no.
So
Yeah.
we can cut this out. Um,
I don't care.
I developed this thing called cognitive drawing that I
Yes,
don't know
yes.
if you've heard about it.
Yeah, that's what I heard,
And it's kind of that thing. Like people would come to me and I'd get frustrated. I'm from on a different side where I get frustrated when people are like, "Help me learn to draw," and I'm like, "Dude, I just taught myself to draw. Just go sit in your room and do it." You know,
yeah.
like
Yeah,
obsess over something that you love, and then you know you'll see the nuance in it. But I realized there was a certain technique that I did kind of growing up in when I was trying to figure out my favorite artist style.
yeah.
And it was this approach that I've coined as cognitive drawing now. And
Yep.
I ended up making it into this workbook, and it's still in beta because it's not finished, but there's like 60 pages done. And it's been actually so it's kind of like that, like what you're saying. It's kind of like the assignment. Like
Yeah,
you
totally.
seriously want to learn to draw? All right, here's this 300-page book. Do it, you know?
Right, right.
And that's what I want to eventually get to. And I think that's the reason I made it, so I could just say,
Oh, for
here
sure.
you guys go. Like this is legitimately how I taught myself how to do it. Um, you know, just me doing it myself. But also it's like all the you know, all my life lessons of how to teach yourself how to draw in this
Yeah.
with the worksheets and the exercises. So it's kind of a combination of a Scott McCloud meets workbook, you know?
So I do remember the video and the process, and I've done it before as well. It's like, yeah, and if you want to explain what cognitive
Oh yeah.
drawing is, let's say there's a subject like I don't
Yeah.
know, a portrait. So
Yeah.
how would you go about doing it?
So, so what I, the way I developed it was I would always think when I was a kid, like, I wish I could have Todd McFarlane look at the stupid hand I drew and tell me how he would have drawn this, you know,
Yeah.
or Jim Lee or whoever else. And what I realize is, well, I can reverse engineer this and just
Yes.
let's just say I want to draw this hand. Well, I flip through a Todd McFarlane book until I find a hand in that pose, and then I cover it up before I look at it very long. I just know that that angle exists, and then I
Mm,
sit there and I draw that hand as good as I can, and then I compare them. And then in essence, it's like Todd McFarlane saying, "This is how I would have drawn your hand." Right? I would compare the two, and then I would draw it the second time referencing his hand. And so
okay.
for whatever reason, my brain, that's when I would start connecting the dots.
Yes.
Is after I did it first myself, and then I compared it to someone else's, and then that I really loved too. You have to have that equation in there. You have to love what you're trying to copy.
Yeah.
Um, and then I compared it, and then I drew it from his, and then I would cover it all up again, and I would try it again from memory. And it's like it was amazing how much you would retain. And then I'd just keep doing that, keep switching back and forth as long as I needed. So I'd fill up sketchbooks full of like certain angles of certain things, like over
Yeah.
and over. It'd be my version from reference, my version from reference, and I realized that this you could apply to almost anything because when I
Mm,
moved to LA and started doing storyboards, there'd be assignments, and this is all pre-internet. You know, like, I mean, internet was around, but mostly people would have a big old accordion folder of scrap like
mm.
images that they could reference. Um, so you couldn't Google something, but you know, so say I needed to learn how to draw a lawnmower, and I'm like, I've never drawn a lawnmower before. I'd just do it real quick. I'd draw one as good as I could from what I knew, and then I would try to find a reference for it, and I would draw it from that reference. And it got to the point to where I only had to do that like once,
Yeah.
and I would retain enough information from that little exercise to be able to just crush through these storyboards real fast because storyboards is like, you know, you just got to fly through it. So um, I just realized that this is a good thing, and I would talk to other artists about how I do this, and they're like, "Yeah, you're just practicing," and I'm like, "No, but there's something different here. It's not just
Yeah.
like like
Cognitive,
how do you
literally.
practice? You know, like is practicing tracing? Is it just drawing it once? What is
Yeah.
practice? You know, how do you really make sure your brain's retaining this stuff?"
Right.
And I was convinced I had this idea, but you know, years and years passed, and I just stopped talking to people about it. But then when people would start asking me online, and I'd get frustrated, like, come on, just get some books that you like and practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, you know, just
They
don't
want the
get the
easy
normal
button.
anatomy books, but just, you know, just
Yeah.
something that you love. You know, do you love anatomy style drawings, these rigid things? Then go for it. But if you don't love it, then don't do it. But
Right.
anyway, that's when I realized, well, maybe this system, maybe there's something to this. And so I tried it on this little free class here locally, and
Oh,
it blew my mind. People were like 40-year-olds were like drawing stuff, really like anime,
so
like kids were doing it, and it's like, what? This works.
and wasn't it like a 1 hour session,
It
and
was
by
just,
the end
yeah.
of it, they're able to draw the thing?
Yeah, I just made these little worksheets, and it just had
Yeah.
these simple little things like either a cartoon, arm, or an anime face, or an eyeball or whatever,
And the
and it was
first
just
five
like,
are bad, but
yeah, yeah,
then they
it's
get
just
it.
like horrible drawing, and then pretty good because it's from reference, and then a little bit better than the first horrible one, and then another good one from reference, and then suddenly it's like, wow, the third one looks exactly like the reference, and these people were
Scientific
like
proof.
blown away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the
So
brain is capable of doing that for you.
yeah, and what's neat too is like since then, or since I talked about it, this neuroscientist, he approached me and he said
Oh,
he lives around the world, but he um, he emailed me. He's like, I've been a fan of your Remind because it has brain transplantation and all that stuff. He's like, but cognitive drawing's cool because it has to do with what I actually research. And
that's awesome.
he's like, what's interesting is you've somehow stumbled across this stuff that brain science has been learning for the last 20 years of how the brain actually works, and you're kind of right, you're kind of dead on a lot of these things.
That's awesome. You're a
And so
scientist.
I was just like, yes, but anyway, so it's just exciting, and right now the only way people can get it is this beta PDF that I sell on my Gumroad. But
I'll
if they,
definitely link it.
that'd be great. Yeah, and if people get it, if you guys get it, every time I update the book, you'll get the free update until it's done.
Cool.
So, and I'm hoping it can end up being like a 300-page book where you go through the whole anatomy of a muscly dude. And I actually hired this dude, took pictures of him, and he's just ripped like nobody's business. The stuff that's in the book now is not that guy,
Yeah.
but I'm going to replace it with this. He won first place in this bodybuilding championship here locally, and he's just amazing. So it's going to be
That's
amazing
cool.
reference, but I don't want to, take over with my cognitive drawing pitch.
No,
Sorry.
no.
But
No,
it
don't
might help.
apologize.
It might help some people. So, and it's really cheap, and I think it's a good. If you get anything out of it, hopefully it's how to use it
The
on
process.
stuff you like.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through the whole book and do my stuff. You can apply it to your own stuff, and that's what I'm really hoping people get out of it. Is
Yeah.
cool. I learned the technique. Now I want to learn this style and this style and this style.
Right. I think there's two types of, I guess, two camps of people who ask the question, "Hey, how do I get better at drawing? I want to do, I don't know, anime or whatever."
Yeah.
There's those who like you tell them the answer and they'll do it, and there's those who are expecting some kind of easy 5-minute tutorial that does it for them. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's the cognitive drawing method where, well, I'm sure the masters did the same exact thing. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
why does this plant look this way? Okay, let's try to do it without looking, and then look again. Then,
Yeah.
then the people who are willing to actually put in the effort, if they spend just a month doing that workbook,
Yeah.
they'll level up so hard.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's really what separates the professionals from the amateurs is just
Yeah.
putting in the time. And some people just don't know where to even start, and
Right.
so hopefully this actually gives you a place to start, and like eventually you'll get to a place, I hope, where you have your own project and your own idea, and you're
Mhm.
just like, because this is another thing I tell people. It's like, it's all about your personal project. Start working on on something that you absolutely love and want to do, and so that you will actually finish it, because you
Okay.
need to finish something, like, so that it can be put out there into the world, right?
I'm gonna listen to this podcast later on so that I can get inspired again.
I mean, my whole career is based on my personal projects. I got into storyboarding because I made comic books and I made my own comics, and that's what made me good enough to be able to do storyboards. Like, I was hired because of my comics, and then when I was doing storyboarding, I started doing my own animation because I wanted to learn animation, and then I got hired to do animation, like traditional animation, and I started directing and art directing animation commercials, and then that led me to the Intro to Kung Fu Panda, I wanted to learn to start doing color because I never did much color. So I started making my comic book with color, and it was just all personal projects. And that was my portfolio then for Dreamworks to do viz dev. And so that opened that door. And now, the reason I'm doing comics full time now is because I made my own comic. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't because I was given the job to make a comic. So really every single door that opened for me in my career was from a personal project first.
Got it.
If you build your portfolio and your portfolio and with school assignments or jobs, then that's going to dictate the direction you go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So,
but if you fill your portfolio with personal projects, that will dictate which direction your career goes. And you really want it to be something that you love doing, that's your thing. Otherwise, you're going to just get cornered in this field that you end up hating, after 10 years.
That was me for the past 4 or 5 years.
That was totally me. Yeah, 15 years of just, I'd find myself in a situation where I'm like, that's why I would be like, I want to learn to animate. I don't like doing this anymore, this other stuff. So I'm going to animate. So I'd focus all my free time on this other personal thing that was in a kind of slightly different art field. And then it would open doors and I'd get a job in that field. And then I'd be like, I kind of want to do this now, but I'm real curious how it's going to be now, because I'm finally in this situation where I'm doing the thing I'm doing my own thing. So my big question now is there going to be a time when I burn out on my own thing? And what would the next step be? I don't know.
Right.
So I don't even want to think about that, but I kind of don't think it's going to happen because I have, it's like, it's fun to wake up and just work on what you are excited and in love with working on. So, if you burn out, then maybe it's time to change. You'll probably be working on something else in your free time anyway. That's the direction you should be going. At least that's what I hope.
It's such a journey. Like we get steered into so many different directions, and it might take 15, 20 years to figure it out. And
yeah.
I'm envious of those who are 19 and they got it. It's like, how did you?
Oh, tell me about it.
And it's like,
tell me.
And I don't mean in terms of they're really good at it. It's more like they found the thing that speaks to them. And and it turns out they were just isolated from everything, and they didn't let any distractions steer them this way or that way, and they're just enjoying art. I'm like, really, you enjoy it?
I have a friend. You've probably heard of him, John Clausen. I shared an office with him in Dreamworks, and the guy just fascinates me. And now he's moved on from Dreamworks before I did, and he's a huge children's book artist and author now. Won Caldecott medals and everything.
Nice.
And his stuff is it's so simple and it's so his style. And he's young, and I always was blown away with how. And he won't tell you this. He won't say he's doing this, but he's so forcefully saying, I'm doing my style, take it or leave it. And he'll tell you it's because he can't do any other style. And I'm just like, yeah, you can, but you just don't want to, But he's just so
his name again?
Good. John Clausen. I actually have a series of interviews with him on my channel. He was one of the last guests I had because I'm so blown away with his stuff, and it's just simple, but it's good. You're an artist. You'll understand what I'm saying when you see it. It's there's something amazing with simple stuff that to be able to draw a triangle and everyone go, wow, that's an amazing triangle is really hard.
That's the next level.
So I always think about him when I have this kind of a conversation about finding your style early, because he's the perfect example of it for me. I'm just like, dude, you have your whole career ahead of you and you already figured it out.
So before you go, definitely anyone watching, check out I'll have the links in my description in my video. And
and I'll link to Ahmed's YouTube channel. Am I butchering it? Tell me.
It's close. It's Ahmed. Yeah,
Say it again.
Ahmed.
Ahmed.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'll have links to his stuff. Well, thank
Ah,
you so much. This was a lot of fun.
it was definitely a pleasure.
I will, whatever. It's a horrible ending.